Though Africa is considered the poorest continent in the world, it is the second largest continent based on both land mass and population. It has 54 countries that are fully recognized by the United Nations. People in the African continent speak about 2,000 different languages. Some of them have different dialects. Historically, at one stage, the African continent was termed the mother of mankind or the Garden of Eden. Its diverse and rich culture. Africa is also home to some incredibly strange and bizarre things that most people around the world are unaware of, including the ancient bones of Ples and Homo Naledi. Today, we'll talk about the 15 shocking things recently discovered in Africa. Mrs. Pless. This skull was found near Stadfontein in Gauteng province in South Africa, about 25 miles northwest of Johannesburg. It is one of the most famous skulls discovered in the world so far and is known as Mrs. Pless. While excavating the archaeological site, the paleontologists and archaeologists who did not expect to find fossils used dynamite and a pickaxe. Resultantly, the skull was blown into pieces. Even today, some fragments of the skull are missing. Despite this, Mrs. Pless remains to be one of the most perfect skulls of an adult Australopithecus africanus, or so it is believed, ever discovered. Australopithecus africanus is considered by some to be a distant relative of all mankind. It also is supposedly supporting the theme that probably humanity originated in the African continent. Mrs. Pless was formerly known as STS-5, and she got this nickname because she was believed to be a middle-aged female. However, it seems that Mrs. Pless had actually been a Mr. all along. Based on analysis of the skull's tooth sockets, experts opined that the skull had large tooth sockets which usually belong to a male. Still, the status of the skull remains unclear as sufficient information is not available. Accordingly, some experts and historians have dubbed it the skull with an identity crisis. Whatsoever the case may be, this skull, which some believe is 2.5 million years old, is still a significant discovery. Clothes-making tools. Some archaeologists have discovered ancient clothes-making tools in the Contrabandia cave located about 25 miles from Morocco's capital, which date back 120,000 years, they believe. The tools were developed sewing specific materials like leather and fur more efficiently. These are very primitive tools found in Africa, however, these are the first ones discovered specifically made for clothes making. It may help researchers to assess the origin of human behavior. Mopani worm snacks. This Mopani worm is also known as Medora or Makimbi and might look stomach-churning to some. Well, these are a staple part of a day-to-day diet of people in rural areas, especially in Zimbabwe. In some cities, they are considered a delicacy. There are several recipes for them and can also be eaten dry, fried or drenched in sauce. Some people can eat some dried ones raw. Their name is assigned because they eat the leaves of the Mopani tree after they hatch in the summer. Harvest season commences at this time and these worms usually reach a length of a hand. They're quite thick and locals handpick them from the lower branches of trees. At times, people shake the trees to make them fall to the ground. Once touched, they excrete a brown liquid. Before being eaten, they are dried under the sun. They contain proteins, iron, zinc, calcium, phosphorus and fiber, which makes them a pretty healthy snack. Lake Natron. Lake Natron is located in Tanzania. It's a unique water body with salty red wasteland, which allegedly converts animals into stone. It is one of the most inhospitable water bodies on the earth. Thanks to salt-loving organisms and algae that flourish in this lake's water, it usually has a crimson color. Lake Natron generally reaches up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. At this temperature, most animals can't survive conveniently. The pH of the lake is also as high as 10.5, which can easily burn the skin and eyes of most animals. These reasons, augmented by the landscape around the lake, explain the absence of all animals except flamingos, who consider it an ideal breeding place. About 2.5 million flamingos have made Lake Natron their home. In the past, a photographer stumbled upon the remains of flamingos that appeared as if they had turned into stone. Actually, they were just covered with chalky sodium carbonate or soda crystals, which made them look like they'd been turned into stones. There are concerns regarding the preservation of the lake as the population of lesser flamingos would be extremely threatened. Karoo. We've all heard about the Nazca lines found in Peru. Geoglyphs are astonishing features which are usually attributed to extraterrestrial creatures. In reality, geoglyphs are immensely difficult to create and most of them are considered to be astronomical calendars and ritual sites. These are generally shrouded in mystery. Well, the geoglyphs in the Karoo were inspired by Nazca lines. Annie Sneymun decided to make a snake-eagle thinking path in the Karoo. In September 2014, she started her enormous land art and completed it in February 2015. This geoglyph has one continuous line. It is the path that leads the walker to the start point. The geoglyph symbolizes the unity of species and habitat. Two snakes form the heart of the eagle. It can also be interpreted as the wind or the water of the river nearby. The entire geoglyph measures about 170 by 57 meters. The thinking snake geoglyph also represents riverine rabbit thinking path. Akill Depression. Akill Depression is located in Ethiopia and is considered to be one of the weirdest and most inhabitable places on Earth. It seems to be an alien planet or a gateway to hell. It consists of sulfurous hot springs, salt mountains and acid pools. Except for extremophile creatures that manage to live in extreme temperatures and pH, no other living beings risk living in the area. It's a 160-mile-long bowl, and here average temperature remains 94 degrees Fahrenheit. Rain is an extremely rare phenomenon. It's filled with volcanic chemicals that make its water appear in weird colors like green, orange and yellow. It's very hard to breathe here as the stench of rust, sulfur and chlorine is unbearable. As the Akill Depression is located 400 feet below sea level, it is one of the lowest places on Earth. It attracts visitors, scientists and salt miners. Researchers are looking for microbes in the area that continue to exist in the depression. Vredefort Crater. The Vredefort Dome or the Vredefort Impact Crater is located in the vicinity of the small village of Vredefort. It is the largest crater in the history of the Earth. Originally, the crater had a diameter of 190 miles. It's believed to have been created due to an asteroid that hit our planet and has been the largest object to strike our planet since the Haitian Eon, which is believed by some to have struck the planet about 4 billion years ago. Apparently, over time, Vredefort Crater has been eroded and mostly flattened. It's estimated by some to be 2 billion years old. It has the only ancient impact site that shows multiple rings, which signifies how violent and deadly the collision was. The Nobel Street. Vilakazi Street is located in the heart of Soweto in South Africa. It is considered to be the most famous road. The importance of the street is connected to the people who resided there. It's home to a well-recognized Nobel laureate. It has been home to two awardees, two South African most recognized leaders, Archbishop Desmond Tutu and Nelson Mandela. In 1984, Desmond Tutu was allotted the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts in fighting the system of legislation apartheid. Nelson Mandela is revered and won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993 for his efforts in the peaceful termination of the apartheid regime and for establishing a new democratic South Africa. A large number of international tourists often visit the former residences of the two highly famous leaders. Bungee Towers. Orlando Towers are giant cooling towers that once functioned as part of a coal plant which was decommissioned in 1998 after having been functional for 5 decades. In 2014, its original building collapsed. However, these two cooling towers remained intact. These were given special paint jobs that symbolize the cultural rebirth of the community. The Orlando Towers offer an aesthetically pleasing visual and also a thrilling attraction. One can reach the terrifying and death-defying height of more than 300 feet. Those who are brave enough can walk across the narrow bridge between the two towers. From there, one can bungee jump, power swing, or even free fall. The location is just 1.5 miles away from the Mandela House. Dead Sea Scrolls. A shepherd found the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947, which are known as the oldest Hebrew biblical texts. These scrolls are recognized as the most significant archaeological discovery of the 20th century. For the first time in 60 years, archaeologists have recently discovered new fragments of a Dead Sea Scroll, which included pieces of parchment hidden in a desert cave dating back to the era between 132 and 136 AD. The cave is called the Cave of Horror, as the archaeologists faced gut-wrenching and horrific scenes while excavating here in the 1960s. They encountered about 40 skeletons lying inside the cave. Bateared Fox. The bat-eared fox is an adorable animal found in the African continent. They possess fluffy silver-grey coats, bushy tails and black stripes. However, their most striking feature is the huge ears that are sometimes bigger than their faces. They are quite small, just 11 inches tall at their shoulders and a length of 31 inches. They weigh just 3 to 5 kilograms. These cute and cuddly-looking creatures can prove to be extremely ferocious. For feeding, they prey on insects, small rodents, and fruit. Their tiny teeth make nibbling hard meat almost impossible. They generally nap during the day in burrows and remain active during the night. They mostly inhabit arid areas of southern and eastern Africa, but in the recent past they have also spread to Cape Peninsula and Cape Agulhas. They are found in the wild and are not suitable for a domestic pet. Shoebill Stalk. Shoebill Stalk is a bird that seems to be a modern mini dinosaur. It looks like a prehistoric animal. Their name may sound silly, but you'll find them intimidating once you encounter them. Some images of the bird make it resemble CGI. They're commonly found in the remote and dense unexplored swamps of Africa. They've been named for their shoe-like bills. Experts have started to learn more about these birds, as some of them have been taken care of in captivity. Their population is decreasing, making them rare and an endangered species. There are less than 5,000 of them in the wild. They usually grow from 3.5 to 5 feet tall and have been observed to have a longer lifespan in captivity. In the wild, they're known to live for 35 years, whereas they live for 50 years in captivity. Their huge bills are used to create clicking noises as a form of greeting. They prefer solitude, and usually one chick hatches from a monogamous pair. Generally, they perform parenting duties and mostly stay away from each other. A mated pair spend their time in their own territory and join only when they prepare a nest for the young baby. They can sometimes be mistaken for a statue, as they stay motionless for hours, especially when they're waiting for their prey. Adam's Calendar. The stone formation known by locals as Adam's Calendar is located in the Blue Swallow Reserve in Elanzani, South Africa. South African pilot Johan Hein spotted it for the first time in 2003 while flying over the picturesque Mpumalanga region in South Africa. His plane had crashed into the mountainside and he stumbled upon these monuments. This megalithic calendar can only be accessed by a few people, as one has to pass through harsh terrain. However, the view is impressive. The stones form a circle having a diameter of 100 feet. The place has been nicknamed the birthplace of the sun and African Stonehenge. It seems to be an astrological calendar. Oldest human burial. In 2021, a group of archaeologists found the oldest known human burial in Africa. They discovered the remains of a young child believed to be 3 years old, who was carefully laid to rest in a grave they believe approximately 80,000 years ago. He was lovingly named Umtoto, which means child in Swahili. He was found with his legs tucked to his chest and properly wrapped in a shroud. He also had his head on a pillow and was carefully covered in soil. Our ancestors lived just like us. They experienced grief and honored the deceased by giving them a proper burial. It shows emotions and feelings of Umtoto's feelings. Besides elephants, humans are the only creatures on Earth proven to show grief and attachment towards the dead. Before moving to number 1 on this list, take a look at this image. The animal in this picture was caught by the locals and looks unlike anything seen before. It closely resembles a monkey but seems more active and aggressive than regular monkeys from the way they're trying to contain it. Maybe it's a new species that escaped being detected by humans for a long time. What do you think? Homo Naledi. In 2013, archaeologists discovered remains of an unknown, supposedly human species hidden deep within a cave located in South Africa. The human was named Homo Naledi, who was very far from modern-day humans according to scientists. They were quite primitive and had a tiny brain, ape-like limbs and ape-like facial features, much like an ape. However, the discovery of Homo Naledi is significant in tracing and understanding human evolution for those scientists. Its fossilized bones were found in a cave known as Rising Star, located approximately 30 miles northwest of Johannesburg. Over 1,550 specimens from at least 15 Homo Naledi individuals had been found by 2014. Despite all these efforts, we have little knowledge about their way of life. Which of these discoveries from the African continent did you find most interesting? Tell us in the comment section below. Also spare a few moments to like and subscribe to our channel.